Race, as defined by Merriam-Webster Dictionary, is a category of humankind that shares certain distinctive physical traits. Racism, defined by the same dictionary, is believing that the racial differences in people make them superior or inferior. These words are used so much, do we forget the actual meaning? What is race in other cultures? How does race affect us in our everyday lives? What are your views on racism?
Only white people can be racist.
Okay. It's not, because with racism, it's not about a person's, about how they look, because that really has no effect on anything. It doesn't have effect on their personality or what they think about life and how they perceive things. It's all about just someone being different from you, and for some reason being offended by that, even though there's no rational base for it.
Because it's like a visual cues kind of thing. It's like judging a book by its cover.
I think we all come from a same place before millions of years ago. So we all evolve and we diversify.
Okay.
I consider myself somewhat racist because I do form judgment against other people from different backgrounds. But however, I try to not use that as a negative judgment.
You see, because I come from Romania and we do not have so many, for example, black people, but we do have like a lot of gypsies. We are famous for that, unfortunately. But we don't have in our vocabulary race and racism, because even if we, we interact with them, and sometimes I would say that we might disconsider them, but we do not judge them because they're gypsies or because they have a different color. We try to see more how people think, and based on that, we categorize them. Okay, you're right for this, for example, for this job or not. So I would say that we do not have that in our vocabulary.
What is one form of racism you've encountered?
Well, I feel like we're all grouped and stereotyped. Not even, well, actually I've probably more so been outcast from being African American because I was so light skinned. And I remember during my childhood, it was a really not a tough time, but I remember being like, yeah, I'm black. And people were like, have you seen your skin complexion? So, I had to explain to them my dad's Nigerian, how black can you get? But race it's a tricky subject. There's no one variable that says, hey, you're this race and this is where we group you in, because you have, I feel like this is with all light-skinned people. You have, your skin is not dark, so you're not black. But, other, white people would say, well, your skin is darker than mine, so you are black. So there's this weird medium where people are just outcasted from race altogether, and I feel like that's where I stand.
Well, I guess it's mostly acceptance in school. Mm-hmm. I went to, for middle school, I went to a Native American based school. So of course I was one of the few that were white and the rest were Hispanic or Native American. And then when I thought I could fit in, but all excited because I finally found out I was Mexican by in 6th grade. So I started sharing the news around them to them, and then they're like, oh no, you're not, because you're just white. So and then they even tortured me even more. So that wasn't. So I just kept quiet. When I got to high school, I went to an all Mexican based school, and so I told them I thought I was free enough to tell them that I was Mexican. And they said no, I wasn't, because I didn't speak the language, and also the fact that I had to prove myself. I had to state my mom's last name and my grandmother's last name to prove that I was Mexican. Wow. So it's been tough. So when I moved out here, my mom thought I would have a fresh new start, because I guess she heard there were some problems here about racism and how she'd be like, oh, you can fit in now since you look white and no one's ever going to judge you. And that was the opposite. People actually found out I was half of something out in the middle of nowhere. And they're like, oh, you look, or what are you? And I'm like, oh, what? Oh, I guess. But it's kind of hard to fit in between just the whites or the Mexicans. They're always because you're just not. Or this one time, it was kind of sad because I was accepted to this one religious space, like we're doing Bible study, and this lady just stared at me for the longest time. And then that's when she asked what culture I was from, and I was like, oh, I'm half Mexican. And then so she introduced to her husband and his friends that, oh, this is Jackie and she's Mexican.
No, usually when you group at Asian, you're supposed to be smart and good in math, science, and there's other factor too, but most of the time it's like the positive aspect to it.
When I'm not so good at math, they go, you Asian, you're supposed to be good at math. Asians supposed to have talent in everything, and some talent I don't have.
Seen it, but my roommate, who's Peruvian, played basketball in high school, and one time when he played basketball, he went to another school, played an away game, and he had to actually be surrounded by police because they were throwing things at him and calling him racist names. I don't know the specifics, but
Wow.
yeah, it was pretty terrible. He ended up getting kicked out of the game because he actually retaliated.
Was going through school and everything, like middle school especially, there is a point where I was, in the goth phase, and so I felt like I was definitely treated differently during that time than when I made a transition into a more mainstream lifestyle. I feel like I get farther by being more mainstream.
I'm an undergraduate teaching assistant for University 112. In one paper, a student wrote, I used to think I could not relate to people of other races, but I've never been racist. How would you respond to that?
I would go, yeah, right.
Yeah, right, what?
Yeah, right, you're not racist.
I felt sometimes maybe something in the back of her mind about racism, but she tried to deny it because otherwise you wouldn't bring up the racism factor to it.
I mean, it kind of sounds like she's not trying to relate, because you can always find something in common with someone else, always. So that's pretty, I'd say she has it in her head already, that how she feels about it, she just wants to cover it up with something, or she hasn't like internally accepted it yet.
Like, I can never say I know what it's like for a white person to walk through the streets, but I can understand some of the different challenges that another black person might feel. And I wouldn't say like, I'd be racist because I thought that. It's just the way it is, the way that people perceive me and how I perceive everything else.
What do you think will happen to race in the next 100 years?
But people aren't going to let anything go, I don't think. It's going to be more than 100 years before. I think there's going to have to be some kind of like scientific explosion and like for race not to matter anymore. Some kind of like apocalypse. I don't know.
I think that people are on a track. We're moving towards more unity and having less of a problem even like thinking about it. I feel like we're finally reaching a point where it just doesn't matter anymore. It's not something that we think about. Eventually it just won't be an issue. You can never fully eradicate it, but it won't be prominent enough to make a difference in anyone's lives, I feel like.
I think in the future it's going to be more diversified and everyone will have this idea what race is about.
I would say that having more mixed races will end up to, I would say, a homogenized society, so that people would stop thinking as categorizing some races as white or some races as other colors. So it will be, I think, a good thing for the world. They will stop doing this. I hate it, so that would be awesome if they do that.
But yeah, if everybody keeps mixing, I guess racism wouldn't even exist anymore.
Well, I feel like it's difficult to say, because on the one hand, I feel like some people don't understand that race is really an issue anymore, especially if they're a race that is more privileged than
another, but at the same time, I feel like recently in the media there's been multiple incidents of showing like that's not true. There's definitely still racism, specifically within this country, but I think like the whole world. So I think overall, I think it's going to lessen. Hopefully it's going to lessen, because I think racism, what people can, blatant racism, like overt racism, is deemed taboo now, thankfully. So I feel like the more, as long as all forms of racism are recognized as such, and they're not dismissed as illegitimate concerns, I feel like it will continue to get better.
I mean, I think it's gonna be the same anyway, because even though you say this is a society where there's no racism, but everywhere there will be somebody that's racist. Like me, at the younger generation, we hang out with so many different color people, color skin that people have, and we don't really care. But then the generation where my mom is and where my grandmother is, they're like always have something in their mind about race. When they think about, let's say, when they think about a black person, they always think, oh, this guy, those people are doing bad things. Their skin looks scary. I don't like them. And when they see a white person, they're like, oh, this person is nice. This person is always friendly. But in actual life, like, not really. Other black people can be really nice. They just black, but who cares? They're nice to you. But some other people, even though they're white, they still be mean. I don't like being around them. Doesn't mean I'm racist. It's just I don't like that person, the way they treat people. That's all.
No, I mean, I would say that being someone who has come from another state, more northern state than, coming down to Virginia, you notice that there's a difference, and I'm not sure if that's because of, the history, people's backgrounds and stuff like that, but there's definitely a difference in how, people of different nationalities and races are perceived, up north versus down in, the south, or some people consider it the almost south, so to speak. So I would definitely make that point, that that's something noticeable.
And if somebody calls you out for doing something racist, don't get offended. Don't assume that they're calling you a bad person. Just listen to their concerns, and if you still don't understand, try to follow that advice anyway, and talk to them about it. Ask why, and if they don't feel willing to talk about it, don't push them. Do your own research.